It's showtime.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Hello and welcome to a very special podcast. It started out as the Bagpipe Report, then it was the Hash Pipe Report, and I guess at this point, what is it, the Crack Pipe Report? We'll just call it the EWA Report. I'm your host, Newt, taking over for Dylan, who had to go back to his home planet. This is a podcast where we will preview the upcoming E-Wrestling Alliance pay-per-view supercard, and that's this month, Queen of the Ring. Joining me on this odyssey is EWA's very own queen himself, John. How are you today, John?
I'm very good. Thank you very much.
And rounding out our panel, it's not Haim, it's not Feldman, it's just Corey. How are you today, Corey?
It's not bad. Not bad at all.
All right. Well, great. I'm doing fine. So that makes three of us, I guess. This is the second ever Queen of the Ring tournament, but the first ever Queen of the Ring pay-per-view, right? So we did a tournament a few years back, but this is the first time it's a standalone event all by itself. Are you guys excited for this Sunday?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny you should mention the previous Queen of the Ring tournament, because I think it was me and Corey who was in the finals of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as Carmella and Rosemary.
Oh, yeah,
Rosemary's
you're right.
a favorite of mine. I do go back to the well very often. With very minimal success at that.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of all of Corey's characters that he's been or currently is at any given point in time.
We're debating.
Yeah, so it should be an interesting show. Obviously, a little bit different than a normal traditional super card for the EWA because we only have a few of the matches that we know. But we'll try to run through the card a little bit and talk about kind of what we think will happen, what we might see. Obviously, I'll try to keep my biases somewhat moot, but I will still chime in as need be. So I've got the old card page up here because that helps so I can break things down. I also have the fancy I lost it. There it is. The fancy graphic that tells us where we've been in the tournament and where we are. So I guess maybe we should just start with the tournament itself. Then we'll go to kind of the auxiliary matches that are on the show, and then talk about kind of what we think might end up being some of those semifinal and final matches. If that guy sounds good to you, fellas.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so Queen of the Ring. We've got. Let's talk about the one I guess right out the gate here. That's kind of interesting. So. Last week we had Daisy Hayes versus Bayley. That ended in a draw, so we have a bye. So AJ Lee actually has a bye in her second round match. So who do you think's winning that one?
We got some question marks.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like a question mark. It's a good hook. You can get the pin very easily.
Yes. So AJ Lee has a bye. So that's John. You mentioned this. I think this is one of the maybe the first time ever, certainly the first time in a long time that we actually have a legitimate bye that doesn't somehow get roped into a second chance or a three-way or something of that nature. So I think it will give AJ a bit of an advantage, but I would say AJ has good handler, good role plays, but not so far out above everybody else that I think this is going to give her, too much of an advantage, I guess is a polite way to put that.
I almost want to say it's a disadvantage in that, with the other participants where they know who they're going to be facing first, they have a target essentially. Whereas AJ Lee, I mean, she could be buckshot, she could go for anybody at that point. So maybe I would see that more of a disadvantage because she doesn't have a focused target first round.
That's actually a good point. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah, but I would say as well that AJ has come across already as quite a versatile character in like her crazy persona that she can probably get away with doing her own thing in her role plays without having to, worry about speaking about someone specifically. So I don't know. I think it depends on the direction the handler, takes her role plays this week.
I think, yeah, tournament and for those maybe who are tuning in and don't know the rules and and are part of the tournament, there's three role plays and it sort of just counts across for all of the matches. And I don't really do that as like, first RP is first match, second RP is, second match, third RP is third match. I don't really do it like that. I kind of just do a cumulative, all together thought process, basically. So yeah, I mean, I guess it could be a little bit difficult for AJ. I know some people will kind of just focus on their one singular opponent that they know they have, and they'll kind of just do their three RPs on them, and maybe sprinkle in. Well, I might see so and so in the next round, or I might see somebody else in the next round. But AJ has, yeah, you're right. I mean, she's kind of got a lot of options there. Let's talk about. Obviously, she beat Brooke to get there. But let's talk about the potential opponents that she has. So our first round, we saw Ember Moon and Sasha Banks, the current EWA Women's Champion, and Sasha Banks advanced. And then we saw Nydia against Shotzi Blackheart, and Shotzi Blackheart advanced. So we know AJ Lee will be facing the winner of Shotzi Blackheart and Sasha Banks. So let's talk a little bit about that match. What do you guys think about these two ladies? And obviously, Sasha Banks is the women's champion, so she's obviously been doing good. But Shotzi has been very active and been in a lot of storylines the last few months. So, what do you think about this matchup? We'll go to John first.
Well, I'm quite excited for it because it's Shotzi is someone who's he's been around for a few months now and been involved in like a lot of storylines, but she's always kind of almost been like always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and never kind of like had that one major win to kind of propel her up the card into like a title contention or something like that. Whereas a win here, obviously against the reigning women's champion, would go a long way to putting her in that position, regardless of whether she goes all the way in the tournament. Anyone who beats Sasha Banks in this thing has got to be considered for a future women's title shot. But at the same time, beating Sasha Banks is not an easy task at the best of times, because Vinny is so good when it comes to his character work. Like I did, offer a bit of praise to him in the feedback thread this week, because it sometimes feels like we just take him for granted a little bit, where he is doing this incredible layered, detailed kind of build up to Sasha's like journey she's been on ever since she came into the EWA, like picking up from whoever was playing Sasha briefly beforehand, and then just building on that and going on this journey, which all makes sense and kind of feeds into the next thing. So yeah, I mean, Vinny's going to be a tough one to beat in this entire tournament, I think.
And what do you think, Corey? You've worked with Shotzi, right?
I did. I worked with Shotzi as part of the Coven storyline with Daisy Hayes and Bailey. What I really like about the women's division is it almost feels very frantic at times, because there's so many different ideas and so many different kind of out of left field things that happen. With Sasha Banks is Vinny's going to be very, very difficult to beat, in that when I think of Vinny, and it just kind of occurred to me as John was talking, when I see what Vinny has done with Sasha Banks from beginning to end in the various title reigns they had and the various ways they've ended, I see a lot of John's Carmella, John, who won Queen of the Ring the last time we had it. So I think that is, that's not a bad comparison whatsoever, considering how Vinny is so, I don't want to say epic necessarily, but everything that Vinny puts out builds immediately from what came before it. I mean, Vinny is crafting a storyline. With Shotzi, what I really like about the group of role players that was part of the Shotzi was part of is they have very unconventional ideas, and I think that is such an advantage for them because they are certainly not limiting themselves to what they do. I like Shotzi's chances here. Vinny is tough, but Vinny has also been in 2 competitive matches week to week. You know, this is Vinny's 3rd week in a row role playing with very high stakes. So I think some of Shotzi's unconventional storytelling might come in really, really strong here. But no, they're 2 of my favorites in the division. So when I saw this one come about, I was pretty excited to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of good points there. Shotzi kind of is very unique role plays, and has kind of been, and John mentioned this a little bit too, kind of an outside character who's been, kind of the second banana in a lot of these feuds, although she's a lot of times provided some of the core aspects or even scored some of the victories in some of the matches. It's not necessarily always been her storyline. So this is a good opportunity for her to break out. But Sasha, obviously, Vinny has layers and layers and layers to this character, and some of that comes from just playing a character for a good portion of time. But you're right; he may be burning the candle at both ends, as they say, because we're coming off a title match last week and a Queen of the Ring match the week before, and been pretty involved in kind of everything up until then, and even prior to that hadn't had as many matches, but has been very active with storylines and segments. And so you do, have you used up all your good stuff before you get to the big show is obviously a question I think that would hang over that match. And I would say really with Shotzi too, this is probably the biggest one-on-one match that she's had. So, can she, fighting the women's champion, can she really elevate her game kind of beyond what we already know it to be? So, all right. So, anybody got any thoughts on any other thoughts on that match?
No, I think that I think this is the one that is the match in this particular round that's gonna. I mean, I kind of think that this could very well determine the winner, in my opinion. Because I mean, if you can beat Vinny, then I feel like there's no reason why you can't win at all.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
I guess this is the point where I throw it to John to do his magic.
Oh, what magic is that?
Is
We'll
it
cut
weird
this
that I knew?
We'll cut this bit out. Corey, can you do it?
Yeah, John, this might jog your memory, but next match.
It's been so long, I've completely forgot.
That's our
Well,
thing.
see, I didn't do it in the first one.
You guys owe us money.
Look, we're doing new things and old things together. Like we're gonna have somebody join the podcast just like halfway in, and no introduction. You'll just have to.
I'm gonna jump in and out like every so often.
Yeah.
Like I'll have nothing
thought
to
there was a
contribute, and
ghost
every
in
so
here.
often I'll be like, "You owe me money," and then disappear.
Yeah.
Just like in real life.
This is our standards and practices. Has joined us.
I don't see
Can't
Lodi.
do that on TV.
All right. So on that note, we will move over to the second side of the bracket, or the other side of the bracket, the left side of the bracket, if you're looking at the screen that I'm looking at. So we'll start at the bottom again. So we have first round. We had Sarah Del Rey and Charlotte Flair face each other, and Charlotte Flair defeated Sarah. And then we had Christina Von Eerie and Shayna Baszler this past week. Christina Von Eerie advanced on. So this Queen of the Ring we have in this second round match, Christina Von Eerie versus Charlotte Flair. Any thoughts on this? We'll start with Corey this time.
I've talked about this in private with John before, but I think that the Christina Von Eerie handler is such a dark horse in the division because their work has been so strong they've not really been able to get a storyline or anything going aside from the one they're telling, which I think is really well done. And I think that's been such a strength for them, is that they've kind of crafted their own world. Because I kind of think that's the secret to being consistent, is to build the world around you. That way you're not just doing what I used to call tit for tat role playing, where you post like a shit talking promo and then you wait for your opponent to do it and then you just counteract everything they said and then they do the same to you. And then, you wait and see what happens as a result. So with Christina Von Eerie, like I said, I think it's such a dark horse candidate that I'm such a fan. And I was really excited to see them get that win and move on, because I feel like they are someone who can really impress if they get the right opportunities. Charlotte Flair is also somebody who, when we got that new influx of Shells recruits into the Fed for the tournament, Charlotte Flair is always a character that I felt like is they're kind of like our Roman Reigns, but for the women's division, in that we never have a consistent Roman Reigns or a consistent Seth Rollins, or in this previously a consistent Charlotte Flair, except for was it Noah? I can't remember their name. I feel bad now. Noah.
Yes.
With this Charlotte Flair, coming in as a brand new character in a tournament is very difficult to do, because it's high stakes and the first role plays are always the more difficult ones. They were able to craft a story very quickly with Sarah Del Rey's handler. So they really kind of impressed me a good bit with that. And I liked what I saw there, and I want to absolutely see more. So yeah, I really like this matchup as well. It's, while Sasha and Shotzi was the one I'm the most excited for, this one's a very close second.
How about you, John?
Yeah, I think what I found interesting about Charlotte Flair's first match, the one with Sarah Del Rey, was obviously they knew each other and they spoke a lot and were able to kind of almost weave their role plays in together. So they played up the whole story about, Sarah Del Rey being Charlotte Flair's trainer and stuff, and that gave Charlotte a lot of material to work with there. But in this match against Christina Von Eerie, she doesn't really have that option, it seems. So it's going to be interesting to see how she approaches this match, and how she's going to go against someone like Christina Von Eerie, who does, like Corey said, have her own storyline going on in her own role plays, which you'd almost think gives her a bit of an edge, in the sense that she's got something to kind of build on already, whereas Charlotte Flair is almost coming into this a bit cold, without having that personal history with Christina Von Eerie that she did with Sarah Del Rey. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to read the role plays for this one.
I think you mentioned Christina Von Eerie kind of doing her own thing, and I think there's some advantage to that, certainly in a tournament environment, because you can kind of tell your story and maybe not get so bogged down with the logistics of the tournament. The flip side of that is the more you do that, some people get very stuck in that and they only want to be able to tell their own story, and then they're not really involved in the week-to-week matches that they're having. And so I have sometimes complained to people about that, or that's hesitate to say slighted people, but sometimes that might be the difference between a win and a loss, because you almost don't pay attention to the matches in front of you. So a double-edged sword there, certainly could be good for the tournament. I would have liked to have seen Charlotte, out there this week, doing something else, watching the matches, or have some kind of a segment to kind of, play up her story. If I was that handler, that's what I would do, to try to get myself a little more immersed. But I know some of these handlers are just coming in to really, thrust right into the tournament. So a bit of a challenge. Any thoughts you have there, Dylan?
Next match.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm sorry. I can't. No disrespect to any of the people we're talking about, but
Dylan hates women. He just he hates women. We've talked about this for years. He has a deep hatred of women.
Nothing could be further from the truth. What I hate is role playing.
Fair enough. So we will move on to the last of the second round matches, but the top half of the bracket here. So we had Aaliyah versus ODB, which I'll do a little bit of a deep dive into that before we get too deep into the match itself. But that match resulted in Aaliyah advancing on, and then we had Jade Cargill against Eva Marie this past week, and Jade managed to secure the victory. I mentioned Aaliyah and ODB. That's kind of spawned off into its own story with ODB. Kind of getting screwed out of the tournament match, and then playing that back a little bit this week, or paying that back, I should say, when she attacked the Diona Peroza. I'll get it. See, I'm taking Dylan's spot.
Yeah, harder than it looks. Say that.
Yes, that girl. By attacking her and taking her out during the title match with Sasha Banks, which allowed Sasha to score the victory over Aaliyah. So you've got a background story here where Aaliyah is really kind of feuding with ODB or the bougie gang there, are sort of fooding and with Aaliyah. With ODB, so you've got a unique story there where she's kind of got her mind on something else, and then we've seen a couple of weeks here with Jade Cargill. She had a nice little promo, kind of introing her character before she actually had her first match, and then she had the big victory this past week. So you got an interesting matchup between these two. So, any thoughts you have there, John?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really sleep on Jade Cargill in this because, obviously she beat Jeff in the first round, Jeff with the J, that is. So, that's not exactly something that's easy to do, given that he's our current reigning heavyweight champion. So, the fact that in her first match with the EWA, she was able to score that big win over a really good role player who posted really good role plays as well. Like, I really enjoyed the Eva Marie stuff and how it kind of set up the fact that she wasn't, had like a wealth of experience to kind of rely on. She was kind of thrown in at the deep end and whatnot. But the promos that Jade delivered last week were so solid. They were probably my favorite promos of the entire week. And with that kind of strength behind her, you kind of think that, she's got the potential to be, a real dark horse in this tournament. But at the same time, Aaliyah is a character who's been all over the EWA's women division over the last year. Like, she's just been arguably like the biggest heel in the division from the moment she arrived, and there's a reason for that, and that is so good when it comes to healing it up and creating like her own sort of mini stories as well in her role plays, and all the little different ways of showing how much of obnoxious asshole Aaliyah is. So I mean, this is going to be interesting because they're both heel characters as well, so you wonder if that's going to sort of be a bit of a clash with in terms of like the role plays as well. Like, are they going to be able to really dig in at each other? But yeah, like I say, I'm interested to see how it plays out because Aaliyah has a role play up already as we speak, and it was a really good, solid follow up to everything that you mentioned happened on Slam with the losing the women's title match and everything. So it's going to be interesting.
I would say Aaliyah, not only probably the biggest heel in the last year, but probably the most successful female wrestler that we've had the last year or so. Obviously winning Civil War and was the champion, and kind of has had herself involved in almost everything. And then you got, she's such a heel that I think it would be hard, even if Cargill is a heel, to she almost becomes the face by de facto, just because Aaliyah is such a despised character. Your thoughts on this, Corey?
Well, I'll come at it from a bit of a biased place because I'm currently working a storyline with Nat, but I really like Nat. I've liked Nat's work for months and months now, and as you said, Newt, Nat has won the women's title. Nat had a bit of an undefeated streak for a bit. Nat won Civil War, and Nat won Woman of the Year. I mean, it's really hard to say that Nat's coming in at any sort of a disadvantage. But Nat's also is kind of coming in as disadvantage, and that they had to role play. This is going to be their third week in a row. I appreciated, by the way, I said this in the feedback thread, but when we put together those segments with ODB, the intention was that it was not going to interrupt the match. It was just going to be it's a side segment, and I appreciated you doing that because it worked beautifully, and it really added an additional layer that that added revenge for ODB, because I really wanted to establish early on that winning Queen of the Ring was going to be the most important thing for ODB, and for her to get eliminated in the first round was really heartbreaking and a good character development moment. But of our newer talent to come in, Cargill's the one who I feel has the best grasp as to who their character is. I mean, they've hit the ground running every week since they've arrived, with segments, with promos, and just kind of being involved. So yeah, no, this one's a really good match as well on paper. I sound like a broken record just repeating myself. But it signifies just how good this tournament is, and I think it, not to speak ill of John, because John won the last one, but this one's probably better than the first Queen of the Ring tournament, which didn't have as nearly as many people competing in it. So I mean, this is ultimately tougher to win.
Well, it's better because it doesn't have John in it, right? That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
John needs to stop winning every goddamn thing.
Yeah. No, you do bring up a good point, though, that I was going to mention, that this tournament, there's been no shows or anything, and obviously that could still happen. But I mean, for that rarely the first round, which is the largest round, usually you get some people that end up either not showing or not putting in a good effort. And we really saw very competitive matches up and down the line in the first round. So not like when John was in it. I have no idea. I don't really remember who.
It was pretty much like that before. It was I'm pretty sure we didn't have the best tournament the last time around. But
I think there was definitely half the people for sure.
Yeah, it was only an 8-woman tournament.
Was JoJo in that, Dylan?
I couldn't tell you, dude. I feel like probably
she was, yeah. She beat no, she beat Dominatrix in the first round and then lost to Rosemary in the
Dominatrix. R.I.P. man. We never found out who was behind that mask.
It was Lita.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Really? You could not. Yes. Honestly, you could tell me anything, I'd buy it.
No, that was the honest to God's. That was who it was supposed to be behind there. So.
Wait, did you say Lita or Linda?
Lita, not Linda.
Because I heard Linda at first, and that was my reaction. I'm like, holy shit.
Oh, like S.A.
Linda McMahon.
That would have been awesome.
Or Kurt Angle.
It was Bryce. Back is Kurt Angle again.
If that
Damn it, Kurt Angle. How did we not figure this one out?
Always Kurt Angle. Well, it's a shame it wasn't always Linda McMahon. That would have been even better. Oh, that's so that is the second round of Queen of the Ring. Aaliyah versus Cargill, Christina Von Eerie versus Charlotte Flair, Shotzi Blackheart versus Sasha Banks, and AJ Lee versus Bai. So we will revisit that in a little bit. We'll talk about who we think might be some of those final matchups. But let's take a look at what's going on in the rest of the show, because there are some additional matches. I think it's nice because the additional matches all have stories. They're not just kind of tacked on, but at the same time, there's clearly an emphasis here that the Queen of the Ring matches are going to be kind of the marquee matches here. So I like that it kind of worked out this way, and this was not necessarily intended. I should also add, Corey, you mentioned the attack, and I saw some people give some positive feedback to that match in the ODB attack in that match last week. Between Sasha Banks and Aaliyah. But I should not take credit for that match. John wrote that match, and he deserves all the credit for that. However, I am the one that worked the sneak attack in, so I will take that part of the because that was just something I decided to do because I thought it made sense. But
that worked beautifully.
So all right. So that's the Queen of the Ring thus far. So let's go to the actual the men's portion or the additional portion. I think we have to start off here with Matt Taven versus Pineapple Pete, who has been getting a lot of airtime as of late. In a national championship #1 contenders match. And the reason we'll visit this one first is because whoever wins this match will then face Chris Jericho for the national championship later that night. This is the only title match that's actually on the card. What do you guys think about this one? Obviously, I think this is more about possibly a potential Taven and Jericho match, but we don't really know because we have the Pineapple Pete match that we have to get through first, so we're not sure what will happen there. But your thoughts on this, John?
I think the way that this has come together in such a short amount of time has been really well done. Like the segments we saw on Slam last week with Jericho doing the Lottery of Jericho, and obviously it was going to be fixed. I mean, come on, everyone knew that. But the way that it's immediately made Matt Taven feel like a big deal in his debut week, and got him involved in the storyline and championship storyline as well, has been, really well done for Taylor and Will. But yeah, like there's interesting ways where they could, take this as well. Like you think maybe it's going to be like the obvious option would be Matt Taven to beat Pineapple Pete and then get the title match with Jericho, but like there's different ways of doing this. So I'm because it's the start of the feud as well, I'm kind of hedging my bets a little bit in terms of where I think it's going to go. But I'm glad to see that Jericho is starting to work with other people as well, because he's been off in his own little corner establishing this new character for a while, and it's been phenomenal work and so entertaining. But it's good to see him kind of mixing it up with other contenders now as well. So I'm all for it.
I think it's good too, because you have Matt Taven. Even though it's not the same handler, it seems like Taylor's sort of trying to play up some of those previous Taven storylines, which was nice because he was kind of one of those guys to watch a few years ago with Avi, and it obviously it's not quite the same, but we know Taylor is a talented role player, and it seems like he's kind of working that in and adding to this. Your thoughts, Corey?
I've really, really enjoyed Chris Jericho since the surprise return at Super Brawl. Just consistently some of the most entertaining segments we've had on the show. And it almost feels like every week we have something new with the Jericho Awards, which were at Resolutions. And then the lottery this week, it's Will, correct?
Yes.
Will has such a fun way of making segments that feel like something you would see on Raw or SmackDown or whatever. I like that because I feel like sometimes we lose a sense of that with the way that we do e-fetting, in that this is supposed to be like a television product that has a lot of sort of outlandish things that can occur. So the Jamie Noble segments are also in that same realm of these feel real TV like, and I like that. With Taylor bringing in Taven, this is a really, really strong way to debut a character, and they're a big deal right out the gate. And this is no fault of Josh's. Josh has had a lot of stuff going on, but Josh really wasn't able to participate as much as he would like with Eddie Kingston as the national champion. So the national title getting this kind of spotlight is going to do a lot for getting it back out there and making it sort of a kind of a more prestigious belt again. I think it was in the Discord, we were talking about how there are records with title reigns that are almost seem like they're impossible to beat. And anytime somebody new gets the national title, I immediately think of Brett's record as Val Venus, and like, could this person potentially break that record? I think, so far, I think Jericho has potential to do that. But we'll see on that. But no, I really like this. The whole Pineapple Pete thing again. This feels real, and I really like that in this storyline. And I look forward to seeing what Taylor can further bring to the table with Matt Taven, who's a performer, a wrestler that I really like, and I like to see that kind of person get success.
Seems like everybody's sleeping on Pineapple Pete. Craig, your thoughts? He must have left us.
Craig was here and gone. I didn't even know.
He was here for he was here for like 5 seconds, I guess.
There he goes.
That bastard.
Well, he's contributed less than I have.
I know. He's made you look good, Dylan.
Well, he always does. Isn't that right, Craig? Craig? Oh, he's here.
Oh.
He just...
His audio is not working.
What a shame.
That sucks. But I'm talking that shit. Okay, fair enough.
Well, there you have it. Craig is silent at the moment. Hopefully he will be able to chime in later. But now Dylan has put him in his place. I think that's perfect time to move on. So we'll throw it to we'll have Corey do it since we're doing something different here.
Oh, next match.
That's enthusiasm right there.
That was yes. See, that way we can't be sued from even.
Yeah, we don't want John to send me a cease and desist.
Yes, we don't want any. So we have. I'm gonna see if I'm gonna skip what I would have went to next because I'm gonna see if Craig can get his audio working. So we will go to the tag team match: Jamie Noble and a mystery partner against Strider and Jeremy Wyatt. John, your thoughts?
Well, it's been pretty solid stuff so far. I mean, obviously the way that Jeremy Wyatt has kind of come in over the last year and just gradually built himself up as this, monster heel, really. Like in terms of, winning the TV title, then winning the national title, then winning Super Brawl itself, then retiring Buff Bagwell. He's just been on this monster roll. And I think he said it himself in one of his, in the one role play he's posted so far this week, where I'm pretty sure he's only been pinned once in the last year, which is insane when you think about it. But so he's got all this momentum behind him, and it feels like a big deal that he's getting ready to challenge for the world title. And what we've seen this last month with him sort of staking his claim by attacking Noble's cousin Nunzio and then beating up Jamie Noble himself with Michael Strider's help on Slam this past week. It's just he's feeling like he's got all that momentum behind him, and Jamie Noble could be in some serious jeopardy with his second world title reign. So I've been loving the way that this is built up so far, and this feels like a good step as well on the road to our next pay-per-view, where Wyatt's already announced that he's going to be cashing in the championship match that he earned by being the winning Super Bowl captain. So yeah, it's looking good.
Now, Craig, you were retired by Jeremy Wyatt. What's your thoughts? Oh, wait, he's typing. Fuck him, he says. There you go. You heard it here first. Corey, your thoughts, perhaps with less colorful language.
So I mean, John really kind of destroyed this when it comes to the analysis on it. I mean, Jeremy Wyatt is somebody who has had such a gradual build.
Are you saying fuck John? Is that what you're saying?
I've been saying fuck John for 17 years now. And losing matches to him for almost 20 years. No. Elliot is a really great example of a character and a writer who has come in and just worked their way up the ranks. It almost doesn't work like that anymore. It feels like we have so many people that when they come in real hot and they get the title real fast and then they kind of burn out. So seeing a lot of that consistency of someone who's worked their way up the ranks is really cool. I was joking around with him. I think based off of just his character selection, I think I know where Elliot is from. He seems to be from the Midwest United States, considering Jeremy Wyatt, Michael Strider, and the fact he used Gary J in a squash match recently. So I think he's in the Midwest. But I was when I was making the graphics this week, and I was having to find a promo photo of Strider to use. I just remembered Steve always complaining about Dylan playing Al Snow and there never being any good cuts of him. No, yeah. I've known Jeff with J now for a very long time. We were in the TNA EFED together. We were tag team champions there, so I'm very familiar with him and his style of writing. I think I think he always seems like on the outside he might be in trouble. I mean, with Santos Escobar coming off of how he performed in Super Brawl, he looked like he was in trouble there against MJF, which coincidentally was also Jared. He also looked like he was going to be in trouble there. So I think it's almost easy to sleep on Jeff and Jamie Noble. So this will be fun just because with the mystery partner, who knows, it could be. I think it's Lil Guido.
Could be Big Sally Graciano.
Tony Mamaluke. It
could be Craig.
Could be Craig.
No, I thought he was going to jump in there. It said he rejoined. I tried, Craig. I really tried.
I really like how Craig's the one fucking this up and not me. This is wonderful. I love this. This is.
See, nobody suspects Dylan, but it could be Dylan over there.
Did you know what? I wasn't listening.
There we go.
There you go. So we'll leave it at that. We were talking about Pokemon ghosts.
No, you weren't. If you were, I would have been listening.
All right. So then we also have a handicap match. I guess I don't think I said anything. He says, I like Ghastly. I don't even know what that means.
It's a Pokemon.
Oh.
See, I'm paying attention. No.
As soon as Craig starts typing Pokemons into the chat, I should mention that I think this tag team match is interesting, and it will be. Obviously, there's a setup there for Monarchy, but we'll see what happens with Noble's, mystery partner. I think you had a good point there, Corey, that he's always seems like he's a little. He's the perennial underdog, if you will, even as champion. So, but sometimes that works out okay. But there's some parallels here to when he lost the title to the Honky Tonk Man. This upcoming pay-per-view is in Jeremy Wyatt's hometown. It's sort of themed around him. So, I could see where Jamie Noble, the character, could be a little concerned, for lack of a better term. So we'll see what happens if Big Sally shows up. All right. So then we have the handicap match, Ricky Starks versus Santino Marella and Hornswoggle. We happen to have both of those handlers here. So I'm going to throw it to Craig right off because we want to make sure he gets his thoughts in as Ricky Starks. All right. And now we'll throw it over to John for his counterpoint.
Well, I'm glad you saved this for last because clearly this is the main event of the pay-per-view. So, yeah, much respect there. But this is just one of those kind of fun little side feuds that have been, popping up all over the place in the EWA over the last couple of months or so. We've seen other like little rivalries like between ODB and Aaliyah and the Bougie brand, and the stuff going on with Honky and King and Dak Draper and Jay Fowler. And this is kind of in the same vein where, it's all started from like a fairly innocuous incident backstage, but kind of spilled out from that into this rivalry, which is just sort of getting started, really. But yeah, it all came about with Ricky Starks buying himself like a fancy pants, expensive car, and then Hornswoggle getting his grubby mitts all over it. So, as you'd expect, Ricky kind of made Hornswoggle pay by putting him in a storage crate or whatever it was, and then yeah, of course, and then
that old story.
You touch my car, well, I'm gonna fucking lock you in a box and post you somewhere. What do you think of that?
Wasn't that the ending of a James Bond movie, but with Hervé Villechaize?
Oh, that might have been, yeah, the man with the golden gun.
There it is.
Let's put him in a box.
It was Hervé Villechaize. Got put in a box.
I'm impressed you pronounced his name so smoothly. That sounded beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, so now Santino and Hornswoggle wanted revenge, or at least an apology, and Ricky Starks wouldn't give it until this week, where he kind of showed up with some champagne and seemed like he was going to make amends, but no, it turned out to be a ruse just to get one over on them, and ended up with Santino requesting this handicap match, and Ricky Starks, being the confident young man that he is, eagerly accepted it.
And Ricky Starks, trying to get a name for himself and trying to get trying to break out a little bit, but you have to think feels a little slighted because now he's somewhat in a feud with Hornswoggle.
He went from sweeping Hangman Page in back-to-back matches to feuding with Swoggle.
So you can understand why he might want to just lock him in a box and be rid of him. Craig, your counterpoint on that.
Yeah, what I'd like to say, thanks for having me on first, is that when it comes to Ricky Starks and Hornswoggle, sometimes you have to take what I would consider to be working with John about 65 steps back to take one forward. And and that's what we're doing here. I got, Starks has 2 big wins over Adam Page, and then John was like, "Hey man," and he was like, "Hey Chop, hello. I'm really struggling right now with my Italian friend with his Irish buddy, and I have nothing to work with, and I really want someone to work with. So will you please do me the solid and take 65 steps back to work with me?" And I was like, "John, say no more, my friend. I will do that for you." John, do you remember that conversation?
I don't remember me being Australian in that conversation.
You were. And to be honest, I thought it was really weird that you decided to go with that accent, but here we are. So, yeah, no. To be honest, though, like John and I have worked together before. It always seems like it's never like one of us is the same character. Like, it's always like we have 2 different people, whether it's like Carino and Cody, and then Marty and Pete, and now like Santino and Starks. The thing is just working with John makes it easy. He's really open to ideas, and we've bounced a lot of stuff back and forth. And I think this has been a fun feud so far, even though it's kind of, a little zanier than the stuff Starks has done in the past. I think it's still kind of grounded in the reality of like the world of the EWA, and I've enjoyed it so far, and I think this is a pretty fun match. I'm looking forward to it.
How about you, Corey?
Oh, I mean,
you PM'd me earlier that you were not looking forward to this, so I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
I mean, when it
he said the same thing to me. It's fine.
My favorite, if I have to get a little person involved in a feud, it needs to be El Torito. So yeah, John, why are you focusing on the Irish? Are you trying to throw like a jab at Dylan or something, or
He just loves leprechauns.
maybe
it's my tribute to Dylan.
It's your tribute.
Well, I don't see how that's at all related to me, but fair enough.
We all know that Dylan can only say his name.
Yeah, and I'm only
it's that obsession with Pokemon.
Whatever. Hang on, wait a minute. So I'm a horse and I'm a leprechaun? Come on, guys.
No. When I saw that the Ricky Starks Santino feud was happening, on paper it always seems really silly because Santino is silly and he's hanging out with Swoggle and they're hunting monsters. But Santino is one of the most decorated guys on our active roster right now. I mean, look through the title lineage. So on paper it seems like it'd be a waste of time for Ricky Starks to want to fight Santino over a silly discrepancy, but a win over Santino is actually a pretty big deal. So I mean, yeah, he's picked up a bunch of wins over Brett's Hangman Page, and that's great. But I think
it was also a little person.
Yeah, Hangman Page, little guy.
That's how Brett plays him, as a little guy. Yeah,
exactly. The whiskey's has a little a baby bottle top on it.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's actually I think if you step outside of just the zaniness of the storyline, a win over Santino would be huge for Ricky Starks, and that would propel him towards one of those other titles, whether it be the TV title or the national title, or it's kind of lonely in the main event scene sometimes. Are there any real clear top main event guys right now, aside from Jamie Noble, who's our current champion, Jeremy Wyatt, who's our next challenger, or Santos Escobar, who just lost his title opportunity? So I think a big win over Santino would be really good for Ricky Starks.
Yeah, I think right now we've got a reshuffling of the divisions somewhat, right? So the women's division obviously is busting at the seams. We had a lot of characters come in right at Queen of the Ring or right for Queen of the Ring. We have Civil War just on the horizon. But then you've got, the TV titles, a little in flux. We don't have a real defined division there. You don't have as defined a division in the national title scene. We talked a little bit about that before, but it looks like maybe we're starting to get some contenders in there. But now the tag title scene has really, boosted up. We kind of glossed over it, but we had a great tag team title match this past week on Slam. We've got a lot of active teams doing a lot of fun things. The low blows and the shark cage storyline that has sort of could have been a one-off thing, but it's turned into sort of a weekly segment, and I think it's done some fun stuff there. So you've got that where in the background where you've got some of these other divisions kind of boiling over, and you've got other ones sort of just starting to simmer again. So it makes for an interesting dichotomy, and I've talked about this in the past, but EWA kind of always has these ebbs and flows, but sometimes it's also dependent on divisions, and you kind of see that here where we've got a couple of divisions rising and a couple at their peak. So should be interesting to see what next month looks like without the tournament taking up so many of the matches, and seeing kind of where things go from here. So
I think it's a excellent, just to interject, to kind of put over how amazing the women's division has been. If you look through the title histories, there are years where we didn't have a women's division at all, or there was the division, but the belt was just kind of getting traded back and forth between maybe the same 2 or 3 people. So to see it not only have its own tournament again, but to have double the amount and have so many more matches on a weekly basis, that's just really cool. And I know that we have ebbs and flows, and I would like to see this kind of continue because it's a fun division to be in. If you've never been in the women's division, like I said, it's so frantic with how many different ideas are getting bounced around and how well everyone there works together. If you're in the women's division, there's a group PM now that every month the idea is that everyone's going to go in and just kind of talk about what their plans are, so the division continues to be very cohesive and very active. Yeah,
I think that sounds really cool, and you're right. There was there were several years there I had no intention really of bringing the women's title back because it had just kind of been poorly used and kind of passed around, as you mentioned. And I was trying to think the other day, maybe John remembers, there was somebody that came in as a female character and was really pushing to bring the division back, and I don't think they ever actually ended up becoming women's champion when we brought it back. To you?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I can't, and I wanted to say it was like a Charlotte Flair, but I'm not 100% certain.
Was it Bradley?
No, it was not Bradley.
Bradley was a man.
Okay.
Bradley couldn't fight for the women's championship. Bradley was a man.
That's fair.
But nonetheless, I remember them really kind of championing it, and at the time we still didn't bring the title back. It was a little bit later before we brought the title back, but it's definitely become a very integral part of the EFED as a whole, and certainly the division has been very interesting the last few months. Which brings us back full circle here to the Queen of the Ring. So we talked about the first round and the second round matches that are obviously occurring on the pay-per-view itself, but now we'll just kind of briefly come up with, if anybody thinks, kind of what they believe will be kind of the final match, and then we'll do predictions after that. So we'll start with our good friend Craig, who missed, I think, all of the women's matches that we discussed earlier. But who do you think would be sort of our final match between the women?
As someone who went up against Sasha and Vinny, he and I have a long history, and he does stellar work. And I remember when Vinny came in, and I think I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again real quick. Vinny reached out to me after he arrived, and I was handling Ember Moon, but I wasn't really doing anything with her. And Vinny wanted to do a program, and I was like, you know what, new guy here. The women's division wasn't that hopped up at that time, and I was like, yeah, this is probably a good thing. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. And I remember Vinny's first message to me was this 3-month detailed plan where it was this week this happens, and this week this happens, and this week this happens. And I the time and attention to detail and the effort that he put into it. And I remember messaging him back. I can probably go back and find it. And I was just this is great, but I don't want to plan out 3 months because a lot of stuff can happen between now and then. And, we're going to come up with different ideas and, do different things and find things we want to do. And we were both right. We stuck to his plan a lot, and we changed some stuff along the way because that 6-man tag at Tokyo was never really a part of it, But as far as he's come from there, I remember early on, I was like, wow, this guy's a really talented writer and handles Sasha well. And now here we are almost 2 years later, and he just has it down, And the thing that I took from his most recent role plays against, I believe it was Aaliyah, right? That he faced last week. Yeah. And I was like, this character has so much depth. The amount of emotion that he puts into the dialogue and the relationship between her and Bunkhouse and her and Tesha, as it was in the role play, you just kind of find all of a sudden you've read 2,000, 2,500 words, whatever it is, and you're like, wow, that went by really fast because you're invested in it and you care about it. And I think that's the biggest compliment that you can pay a writer in what we do, is that they make you care about the people that they're writing about. And I think that he comes in with a huge target on his back. He's the champion, and everybody's going to take their shots, no pun intended, with his opponent. And he's going to get everybody's best. And that's kind of the, I guess, the downfall and the good side of being the champ is you're going to get everybody's best. So, long answer short, but I didn't get a chance to talk about him earlier. I like Vinny, and if I'm being honest with you, I think his toughest test is going to come in that first matchup against Shotzi, because she's doing some fun and interesting stuff too, and I think she has a really good handle on the character from the stuff that I've read. It's different. Her Shotzi stands out from the rest of the women's division. I just think Vinny is just really writing on another level right now, not even for the women's division, but just in the EWA as a whole. And, I think it would be interesting to see Aaliyah come from the other side, but there's something about the Von Eerie stuff. And last week there were a couple times in those role plays where I kind of like cocked my head as I was reading it, but like I still like it still like made you feel and made you like invested in what they were writing. So she's gonna have her hands full too, because even with the new people over there, I'm sure Aaliyah doesn't want to take the loss last week sitting down, and is motivated to win this thing and prove that last week might have been a fluke for her. So it's interesting how it's going to play out. Obviously I didn't mention everyone. There's a couple new people in there that are doing good stuff, but these tournaments, when you come in cold like this, is a lot like Civil War. Like, you really have to find a way to get into the throes of your character's storytelling while also introducing the world that they're a part of. And that's why we don't see a lot of impactful debuts in Civil War. And Newt can kind of call me out on that if he wants, but I feel like, if you can go into Civil War with an established story and an established character and how that character behaves in their world, it's a lot easier than just trying to establish it over the course of Civil War week for the first time. And I think it's the same here. So, people like Jade and Charlotte Flair, it's an uphill battle for them because they have a lot of stuff they need to get out, and they have a lot of development for their character and how their characters react in this world to get out this week. So hopefully it's a pretty good turnout, and hopefully the decision's really hard for Newt because there's some talented people in this tournament that can still win. But I'm going to go with Von Eerie and Banks, and then I'll predict at the end. Sorry for taking so long there.
No, that's okay. You totally skipped the first half of the podcast, so we wanted to have you have some fine thoughts, and you had some fantastic thoughts there. John, who do you think might be our final two ladies battling it out for the crown? With Carmella, I should say, will be there to present the crown to whoever emerges victor.
Indeed. Well, it's as much as I enjoyed Jade Cargill's promos last week, it's kind of hard to bet against Aaliyah. It's like Craig said, I'm sure Nat is really motivated to make up for the the loss in the women's title match this past week. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's Aaliyah against, I'm guessing, Christina Von Eerie in the what would that be, a semi-final match, and between those two I'd probably say Aaliyah onto the final, just because again she is no doubt really motivated. But on the other side of the bracket, I mean, it's so tough to choose between Shotzi and Sasha. It really is. We've talked at length about Vinny's work and everything, but Shotzi is a hell of a character and doing a lot of standout stuff. So I'm kind of pulling for Shotzi because I think it'd be quite interesting for her to get that match with AJ Lee in the semifinals, considering that they've had their issues as well. So yeah, I'm going to go for that. I think that's fair. I think looking from like the outside, just on paper, right? It seems like Aaliyah and Sasha Banks are sort of the the top seeds, if you will, the most established, especially with Daisy Hayes and Bailey both kind of out of the tournament. That leaves a lot of either young people or people that haven't quite established themselves, some completely new. So you would think just on the outset, you've got Sasha Banks and Aaliyah. Seems like a logical final, but if you've ever seen any of these tournaments, whether that's in wrestling and eFeds or in real life, NCAA tournaments, things like that, favorites often end up getting knocked out, and you end up with sort of a surprise person that maybe people weren't thinking about, or sometimes you get one or two upsets, and then things kind of even back out to where you would think they would normally go. So it could be very interesting with the folks that we have involved. Corey, who do you think will be the final two ladies battling it out for all the marbles?
See, John actually just reminded me of the AJ Lee Shotzi storyline, and now I am a little more torn on whether or not Vinny can get past Shotzi. because I feel like that's some extra incentive for Shotzi to get the win. Not only is it a non-title win over the champ, but then you get to go face to face with somebody who's been a bit of a thorn in your side recently. I think, at the end of the day, somebody always has to bet on, the obvious winners, the people who have the most that they've accomplished. And I want to preface this by saying, like, this is nothing against our newer people. We just don't know you as well as we know Vinny and we know Nat. And that's why I guess it's easier for us to kind of like lean towards that direction. We've read a lot more of their work than yours. So do not take any of this as sort of discouragement or us not welcoming you here. It's just we're so much more familiar with them. So I want to say, all of that being said, I like the idea of a Sasha Banks Aaliyah final, just sort of a rematch from last week. No potential ODB interrupting and distracting Aaliyah this time. We get a straight up and down match between the two. That's what my gut's saying.
Yeah, that could be fun. I hadn't even thought really about that, but it would be a big rematch from the previous week. So there's a lot of potential feuds and storylines here that have either already kind of, have some seeds planted. Depending on kind of how the matches shake out, you could end up with a lot of interesting combinations, even in the semifinals and into the finals. Dylan, your favorite Pokemon?
I have too many, man.
Pelipper.
No, not Pelipper. He's the worst. I already like Meowth.
From what I've seen online, he likes the frog with the swirl on its chest.
Oh,
Swirl frog.
Well, I like Poliwrath, his evolution. Yeah. Poliwrath's fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
I don't think Poliwrath will be winning the Queen of the Ring, but you never know.
You never know, dude.
Stranger things have happened. Somebody could get injured, and that could be.
Gotta get Poliwrath.
Right, subbed right in. You just never know. So that's the show. We're going to do the quick rundown of picks, who people think will win these matches. But that's pretty much the card top to bottom. We have, four matches beyond the tournament matches. And then we have the 3 quarterfinal matches, the 2 semifinals, and then, of course, the final match as well. So a pretty stacked show. Should be a very interesting card. Obviously, a lot of it depends on how that tournament breaks down. But we'll run through the card really quickly and get our picks here. So for the handicap match, Ricky Starks versus Santino Marella and Hornswoggle. Dylan, who you got?
Hornswoggle.
John,
just Hornswoggle, though.
Just Hornswoggle. He's going to beat everybody. He's going to turn on Santino. I can see it happening.
It's going to be a bloodbath, man.
Classic. Now everyone's doing their John predictions. John, we're going to have to rewrite this match.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
John.
Yeah, definitely Santino and Hornswoggle.
Well, they have the 2-man advantage, or man and a half advantage at least.
Exactly.
There you go.
Corey.
I'm going with Ricky Starks.
And Craig.
The readers are the real winners.
Truer words have never been spoken. Matt Taven versus Pineapple Pete. Craig, your pick.
Oh man, Taven, but I'm not happy about that pick.
A lot of animosity towards Pineapple Pete. John, your pick.
I'm going to go with Taven as well.
All right, Corey, your pick.
I'm going to go with Taven.
Dylan, your pick.
How could I not pick a guy called Pineapple Pete?
Right?
What's wrong with people?
He rigged the whole contest so that he could get another shot at Jericho. Yeah,
He's
right.
Pineapple.
Those things are tough. You ever pick one of those up in the grocery store? They cut your hands up.
Yeah, it's hard to eat it. You have to cut the skin off at first. Can't just
You're taking
bite into it.
Can we call him Tangerine Taven for the match though?
Clementine?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, Clementine could run in.
Clementine versus Pineapple Pete on Slam.
Clementine versus Pineapple Pete. My goodness.
Let me tell you something. I would give anything to read Clementine role plays just by themselves.
Well, wouldn't hold your breath, buddy.
Okay.
Well, we had Tomko post a role play that I don't even know if it was supposed to be Tomko or not. So, strange
Yeah,
things
that's
have
an
happened.
excellent point.
That could have been a Clementine roleplay. That's a good
That
point.
could have been Clementine for all we know. Chris Jericho versus the winner of the previous match, John.
I'm gonna go Chris Jericho to retain, but via dubious circumstances.
Corey.
Jericho.
Craig.
Pineapple Pete in a giant twist where I picked Taven first.
Yes. Taven is injured, then Pineapple Pete has to come out. I can see it happening. Dylan, your pick.
It's got to be Pineapple Pete. 2 in a row.
He's on a roll. Mystery tag team partner match. Noble and his mystery partner against Michael Strider and Jeremy Wyatt. Who you got, John?
Well, Pineapple Pete is the mystery partner.
Oh shit!
And yeah, he can't bet against Pineapple Pete, so him and Noble to win.
That would, you imagine the shake the EWA foundation to its core. Craig, your pick between Noble and his mystery partner against Strider and Wyatt. Feel free to let us know who you think the mystery partner will
Yeah,
be.
for sure. I'm gonna take Jamie Noble and Clementine.
Oh, great team.
That's my pick.
There you go. All right, the fresh fruit connection. Dylan, your pick. Noble, mystery partner against Strider and Wyatt.
The produce partners. I had to get that. Sorry.
I think it's going to be, well, since everybody else is just goofing around, I think it's going to be Noble and Polyrath.
I thought you were gonna go serious there for a second.
Could happen. Corey, your pick.
I'm gonna go with Noble and little Guido Marziano. Got injured as Nunzio, came back healthy as an entirely new individual.
Corey, take this seriously. Jesus.
I know. I'm sorry.
Still no picks. I'm still predicting Big Sally Graciano. All right, so we'll go to our Queen of the Ring tournament. Sasha Banks versus Shotzi Blackheart. Craig, who you got?
Shit. That's a tough one, man. I'm leaning Banks.
John, are you taking it to the bank?
No, I'm taking it to the
Blackheart, John.
Take it to the shots.
To the blood bank with a heart. I don't know. It's hard.
Dylan, bank or heart?
Heart.
All right, he's got Bret Hart in that one. Corey.
I got Bruce
He
Hart.
can win it. Polyrath can win it. Bret Hart can win it.
Well, yeah, I'm Banks.
All right. Charlotte Flair versus Christina Von Eerie. Craig, who you got?
I'm gonna go with Von Eerie.
John, who you got?
Von Eerie.
Dylan, who you got?
Charlotte Flair.
Corey, who you got?
Von Eerie.
All right. Aaliyah versus Jade Cargill. Dylan, who you got? We're starting out with you.
Aaliyah.
Yeah. All right. John, who you got?
Aaliyah as well.
Ooh.
I hear an echo in here. Craig, who you got?
I'm gonna go with Jade.
Oh.
And Corey. I'm going to
I'm
sound
gonna go with Aaliyah.
Oh.
AJ Lee versus the Bye. Who you got, Corey?
I'm gonna go with the bye.
Wow. See,
Wow.
a twist. No. All right. So that is the show, right? Who do you got winning the entire Queen of the Ring? Corey.
Sasha Banks.
Craig.
I was gonna say Pineapple Pete, but I guess I'm gonna go with Sasha Banks.
Dylan.
Either Bret Hart or Shotzi Blackheart. One of the hearts.
Somebody could be the Queen of Hearts. And last but not least, John.
Shotzi Blackheart.
And we could very well see that Shotzi could run the gambit there and come away as the Queen of the Ring. We have 5 ladies. No, 2. Yes. But I'm gonna do some math here. 7 ladies vying for the crown. So we will see. Will it be Aaliyah? Will it be Jade Cargill? Will it be Christina Von Eerie? Will it be Charlotte Flair, AJ Lee, Shotzi Blackheart, or Sasha Banks, or possibly a Pokemon Pineapple Pete or Bret the Hitman Hart. Any one of them could walk out as Queen of the Ring this Sunday, live on pay-per-view.
Damn.
Yeah. So that will do it for us. Any final parting words, John?
We kind of missed out the arm wrestling match between Marco Stunt and Mark Henry as well.
Thank you, Dylan.
Talk to us about that arm wrestling match, John.
Yeah, they're gonna have an arm wrestling match.
You know what? As one of the heads of that story, it really can't be summed up any better than that. That is correct.
Well, we were only talking about wrestling, not arm wrestling, which is completely different. But that is fair. We'll quickly, Corey, any thoughts on the arm wrestling showdown of the century? It's like
enjoyed
top, but different.
Yes. I've enjoyed Colossal Connection and the Freebirds encounters. They've been really enjoyable.
Yes, I'm also a big fan of Akeem and a expansion of Buddy Roberts. So I'm with you there.
Damn it.
Craig, any thoughts on the arm wrestling?
No, it's been a lot of fun doing this stuff. It's been a little different take, but we're all really having fun with it. So we'll see how it plays out. Should be a fun one.
Dylan, do you think you could beat Mark Henry in Jello wrestling?
Now that's you gotta
hang on. What flavor Jello? What flavor Jello?
He can't eat the Jello.
Okay,
yeah, I'm not eating it. What the fuck? I mean, if it was a Jello eating contest, I think he'd probably win, right?
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
But if it's just like a bare knuckle fight in jelly, it's got to be me, right? You know, play to my strengths.
I think you have an advantage there.
Mm-hmm.
You're spry.
Yeah. Well, that's one word for it. It's what the.
All right. Well, there you go. That is in its entirety. So we will see you Sunday, and we will be back here. Maybe not. We don't know. Who knows if I even actually successfully recorded this. But until next time, this has been the EWA Report, signing off. We'll see you around the corner, around the bend. What's a good wrap up for one of these? Dylan, what do you usually do?
I just tell people to go fuck themselves. Which is why I no longer do this. People think that was too mean, and I'm like, it seems like the most logical way to end this.
That's fair. So we'll do something positive. Spay and
go fuck yourself.
Yeah.